I want to focus on education. And we are really thrilled and privileged to have with us Cliff May, who's the president and founder of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He is, and I'll say this because now he's on the air, he is considered, his organization is founded after 9/11. He has provided information and intel on a bipartisan basis and policies and analysis to 4 different administrations and 2 different parties. He is considered to be the gold standard in Washington, D.C. for research and analysis and policy. Cliff, welcome to Of the People. We are thrilled to have you here.
I'm very pleased to be with both of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's jump right into it. And by the way, just as a total disclaimer, normally Ericka's going to have to be in the background because she wasn't going to miss you because it's you, but she's sick as a dog. So she's just going to be the eye candy in the background.
Yes.
All right. If you need to blow your nose occasionally, just I'll see that you're doing that and I'll stop.
When you see me disappear, I'm trying to save you guys all from seeing that.
Yeah, just take some Dayquil. You'll be fine. I mean,
do I need to wear a mask? You think it would help if I wear a mask? I think I have a couple here in my drawer. So
you might need it. You might need it.
But by the way, don't get me started on that, because to me the masks have become synonymous with a religious garb, right? I mean, because wokeism is a new religion to me.
Yeah.
Right. And it's got all the intolerance and all the earmarks of any new religion in terms of those things. Although I will tell you, before we really dive into this, the funniest thing I saw at the height of COVID is I'm driving north on 91. I live in New Hampshire during the summer of, I think it was the summer of 2020, right? Because it started like March, April, I forget. And I'm driving north. Somebody's coming south in a convertible at like 80 miles an hour by himself wearing a mask with the top down. And I went, I called my friend and I went, I wish I had like my camera out to take a picture of it.
Yeah. No, he was virtue signaling, but he may not have known that. He may have thought he was keeping those pesky little viruses out of his car.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, let's jump right into this. I want to start with Israel because in the last 24 hours, there's been a lot of, there's always things going on in Israel. I mean, Israel, on the one hand, I think there's been reports that they took out a naval base or Hezbollah base, naval base in Lebanon. They went after the financial institutions in Lebanon. And then there was this juxtaposition that there was a leak of U.S. intel about Israel's plans to retaliate against Iran, right? So, you've got 2 different things going on here. And I want to get your take on connect the dots in what's going on in the war in Israel and what stage are they really at with Sinwar now being eliminated, being pressed by the Biden administration to push for peace at this point and let Hamas continue to exist. What's really going on?
So yeah, let's connect some dots here. I think it's important to do so. And the dots from Hamas, the dots from Hezbollah, the dots from the Houthi rebels, the dots from the various Shia militias in Syria and in Iraq, and from groups such as Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the West Bank. When you connect all these dots, where do they lead you? They all lead you to Tehran. Because in Tehran, you have the Islamic Republic of Iran. They had a revolution there in 1979. I was there. I was a young reporter covering it. It was not an Iranian revolution. It was an Islamic revolution. It had 2 slogans, death to Israel, death to America. What this was meant to do was, this was meant to be the creation, the founding of a new Islamic empire, like the Islamic empires of antiquity, which were very powerful. I don't know if we want to do a whole history lesson, but there were huge, enormous, powerful Islamic empires in the past. That's what it was about. All these groups are proxies or foreign legions, or at least allies of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, in recent years, what the Islamic Republic of Iran has done cleverly is say, look, we don't need to fight the Israelis directly. Why would we want to do that when we can have Arabs as our pawns out there to do that for us? And they also want to destroy Israel for various reasons. We can talk about what those reasons are, but that's a very important thing to understand. They want to exterminate Israel and Israelis. They don't want to just conquer them and say, okay, now you're part of our empire. They want to exterminate them. Part of what happened on October 7th of last year, the Israelis had gotten rather complacent about Hamas. I've been many times to the fence between Israel and Gaza and had it explained to me that this fence is really high tech. A sparrow lands on it. We know about it. We take care of it. Wasn't the case. They had huge barriers underground to prevent tunnels coming into Israel. But it turns out there are ways for Hamas, they planned for it, to come in using bulldozers, hang gliders, ATV, all-terrain vehicles, and they came in, and it was a pogrom and the worst bloodletting massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, as you know.
Of course.
The past year has been a very difficult year for Israelis and for anybody who cares about Israelis or anybody who cares about free and democratic societies in the world. But the Israelis have kind of got their mojo back a little bit. They're kind of got their groove back, I would say. And they did so in a number of ways. What they did to Hezbollah, which is much more powerful, or was, as an organization than Hamas, has been stunning. I know a lot of military experts. I know a lot of intelligence experts. We have them on staff at FDD, at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. No one thought that it was possible to do what they did. Literally thousands of pagers on the belts of Hamas commanders and support groups, or support individual personnel, all exploding at the same time, incapacitating. Wow. And then the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, who was at least 9 stories underground in his bunker.
Wow.
And then it's continued on. So the Israelis are doing, but as you also know, twice now, Iran has done something it didn't want to do. It's attacked Israel directly from its own soil. Did that in April, right. Did that in October. Hundreds of ballistic missiles. No country has ever had a ballistic missile attacks like this, but they were not effective because there's good missile defense. The U.S. did participate in this effort to stop the missiles from landing or doing the kind of damage they were meant to do, which would have been thousands of casualties. And now the Israelis are deciding what they need to do next to Iran. This is not a matter of tit for tat. They're at a place in this long war that Israel has been fighting and will continue to fight, despite the death of Sinwar. We can talk about Yahya Sinwar, who was the head of Hamas, who was found just a few days ago by grunts, by Israeli infantrymen who were on a routine patrol. They managed to eliminate him. It's a different time, but this war goes on, and it's still a very challenging war. Israel is fighting on at least 7 fronts, and I'm not counting the front opened by the United Nations, which is now the de facto enemy of the Jewish state as well.
Right. So let me interrupt you if I can really quickly. So, and what you say makes a lot of sense, and we've talked in prior shows about that, and we all agree that this ends in Iran, right? Because Iran is they sell, the leading sponsor of terrorism in the world, but at the end of the day, they're really the head of the serpent here. The question I have is that given the status on the ground right now with Hezbollah weakened, with Hamas near being defeated, it really does come down to Iran. What are Israel's real options with not just retaliating because that their soil, that the missiles violated, sovereign land, right, which is Israeli. So I mean, it would be like, it would be like Montreal lobbing missiles into New Jersey, right? I mean, it's just right. One, which might be okay in New Jersey. We would fight back there, but what are Israel's real options with striking Iran without any security, sensitive information? What are their options? Because that's what I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around.
Well, I'll tell you then. Look, there are a large list of targets, as you probably know. President Biden has, shall I say, admonished the Israelis, don't go after the nuclear weapons facilities at this point, and don't go after the oil resources at this point. That's what he's asked them, and he may say, I'll do other things for you if you don't. And we can talk about why he doesn't want that.
I'd like to know why he doesn't want that, but go ahead.
All right. What I would expect Israelis to do, and this just makes basic sense as military doctrine, is strike your enemy so that at the end of the exercise, he is more vulnerable to you than he was before. That means if he has, as they do in Iran, that he has his own missile defense weapons, S-400s, S-300s from Russia. I think we know he had. Knock those all out. Knock launching pads out if you can. Knock some weapons factories out. Knock some weapons storage out. At the end of the exercise, this is not the last time you're going in. They have to feel, oh my gosh, I am more vulnerable to it.
We're naked.
Strike. And the strike after, we're naked. That's right. Oh,
we're naked.
They've taken away my shields. Now I can't defend myself as I would like to. That's very important. The other thing you could do, of course, is you could do what's called decapitation. You could go after very key leaders. The Israelis have done that with Hezbollah. They've gone, they get together to meet and say, what are we going to do next? And the Israelis know where they are, and they hit them. That's another thing to do. Then it goes down to the junior vice presidents and lower who have to run the country and run the war against Israel. So all those things, I'm sure, are being discussed by very smart people who have thought about this and are thinking about this very hard, considering what their capabilities are. At the end of the day, and I don't mean the first day, the Israelis cannot allow a regime that both vows and incites their genocide to have nuclear weapons, which would allow them to complete the task, really with one nuclear weapon landing on Israel's soil. It's a small country, as you say, about the size of New Jersey.
Right.
Various leaders of the Islamic Republic have said it's a one-bomb country. It's not enough for the Israelis to say, oh, you do that, we'll hit you with 10 bombs. The Ayatollahs don't care about that very much. You can't do this. So they'll have to get rid of that. Now, finally, I would say the Israelis would love to see this regime fall and a new regime take its place. And I believe very firmly that the vast majority of Iranians want the same thing. They are so sick of this Islamist regime that puts the eyes of women out, kills women because they're not wearing their hijab properly. They're not covering their hair properly, which has no freedoms whatsoever for minorities, and there are quite a few. It's a terrible and despotic regime at home, and to see it fall would be very good, and very good for for Israel, very good for the U.S. There's one more thing, one more dot I want to connect in this, and this is important. People don't get that. Unfortunately, there is Tehran and its ring of fire around Israel, almost everywhere. But there's also something else. Tehran is now involved in an alliance, I would call it an axis, with Moscow, with Putin. They're sending weapons, they're sending missiles, they're sending drones to Putin. Putin is giving who knows what to Tehran, maybe technological information on how to get their nuclear weapons up and running sooner. This axis also includes Beijing. That's the big brother in all of this. Don't forget that Xi Jinping heads the strongest communist party and the strongest communist regime in history, and he has a quote-unquote, using his phrase, no-limits partnership with Vladimir Putin. Plus now there's North Korea. Kim Jong-un is sending not just weapons, not just munitions, not just artillery rounds, but actual soldiers to Putin to fight in Ukraine. Okay, so now what we've got is we've got China, Russia, and Iran and North Korea. These 3 out of 4 are nuclear armed. One is trying to be. And this is the axis of aggressors, the axis of anti-Americans, axis of autocrats, authoritarians, whatever you call it. And they're also got junior partners such as Venezuela and such as Castroite Cuba and others coming in that are very cozy with them through organizations like BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement. So in other words, we have this axis. It's an anti-American axis. It's waging a Cold War against America and its allies. This is what it is vital that some candidate, I hope our next president, understands and begins to think very hard about how we respond to this threat.
You know what? I appreciate that. I'm getting a high Senate. We have to go to break, but I still want to come back because I'm going to pose the question again, because I know you did answer it, but everything you've just said to me begs the question, then if you cannot allow Iran to become nuclear, right? Israel is a one-bomb country. Why not go after the reactors now? Let's hold that thought. I want to get your thought on the other side of the break. We're going to listen to ASIC, about American exceptionalism. We will be right back with Cliff May, the founder and president of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. We'll be right back.